Chris here, Man or Two Hunter. First off, thanks a lot for coming and checking out my video. Much appreciated. Today I'm going to talk about these, the PLB. I've chosen this subject today because I feel this is a piece of kit that's overlooked by more than a few people, even though I know a lot of guys are carrying them now. This bit of kit is just as important as your rifle. In fact, it's more so, I would say. I'm going to share with you now a little story about the reason or the catalyst for me having one of these religiously whenever I go out now, whether it's for an afternoon, a day, an overnighter, multi-night, I don't care. It goes with me every time. And it happened to me back in 2009. I was back home on leave and I decided that we'd go for a bit of a hunt with my boys. Both of them were 10 and 12 at that stage. Fit young guys, both played rear poggy, no problems at all. We decided to go in a place called Forks Hut and spend a couple of nights. We'd been to Te Ikaru Hut multiple times and we'd even done a day walk in the Forks before. So I knew the ground, I knew it was no problems getting in there. The kids had done it before, it was great. Light packs, they walked in, we set up the camp. We were set up and all in place by about 4 o'clock. From there we decided to go for a little bit of a walk up on the hill behind it. And I still look back at that point now and think, man, we should have just stayed in the hut. But we didn't. We went for a walk up there. The bush is a bit thick, it's pretty steep. If you've been in that area in the real hennies, you'll know it. We got up the top, onto the Punga flats. And just prior to going into the bush, we took a photo, which I'll chuck up in a minute. Okay, that photo was taken about half an hour before everything went wrong. I look at that photo now and it sends shivers down my spine because I think, what could have been? Yeah, it does. It makes me. It really makes me think about that moment. That was the last photo I took of that day, right up until. In fact, that was the last photo I took until we were out of the bush. 24 hours later. Anyway, we got to the top. We did a bit of hunting. We decided to come back down. On the way down, we got slightly disorientated, for lack of a better word, on a false ridge, and I ended up coming down a bit too far to the right than I anticipated. We pushed back on, and as we were pushing back on, my oldest boy Daniel, who was the second in the order of march, he lost his footing and went down a scree slope that was in the bush. It disappeared out of sight. I spun around, hearing my youngest boy Caleb yelling, just in time to see him step off the track or the track we're on into the scree slope and go. I stood there looking down through the bush. I could no longer see my boys through the scrub and so on, but knowing that they'd slid down the bottom and knowing I had to get down there, so I started making my way down. It was probably about 2 or 3 seconds later, I heard the most blood-curdling scream any father or parent can ever hear. One of my boys screaming in pain. At that point, everything switched off in my head and I just jumped onto that scree slope and thought, no, I've got to get down there. Unfortunately, I was a bit bigger than the boys and the speed got the best of me and I was going out a lot faster than I anticipated. Long story short, I could see the bush breaking. I knew there was a drop, no idea the size of it. Bit of panic, reached out, grabbed a tree, or I think it was a punga as I was about to go off the edge, and it just spun me enough that I went down feet first instead of going down on my back, or worse yet, head first. I landed in the stream probably about 8 to 10 meters down, feet first. When I hit the ground, I caused quite a bit of damage to my left ankle, rupturing and tearing a few ligaments. I thought I'd broken at that time, but luckily enough I hadn't. I also, somewhere at that point, whether it was the way down or as I hit the water, I almost scalped my kneecap, nearly taking the patella clean off. If a couple more millimeters in, the surgeon said later on I would have lost the kneecap totally. When I stood up and looked at my boys, all I saw was blood on my oldest boy Daniel. His whole face was covered in blood, and my youngest boy standing about 2 or 3 meters to his right, just out of the water, bleeding from his leg. He was one screaming. I didn't care about myself at that stage and I ran forward to my boys. Checked out Daniel. He was quiet, dazed. I knew he'd obviously been concussed, and he was bleeding quite heavily from his head and holding his arm. I did a quick check. It was a laceration through his scalp. I bandaged that up as best I could with the kit I had, which at that stage was pretty much my build order. I'd lost my pack, it had been ripped off me on the way down. I'd cut up a piece of my shirt and I wrapped it around his head. I wrapped the other bit around my youngest boy's leg, and I also then wrapped around my knee to hold the bit of flap of skin that was hanging off it, to hold it in. And then I said, we need to get moving, guys. It must have been maybe 10 minutes since we hit the water. I could feel my leg getting worse, and I knew I had to get moving. Standing in the water, I suppose it kind of helped it because it kept it cold. Now, if I stop right there and think about it, if I'd had a PLB, I'd have pressed at that point there. I didn't have one. I knew about them, but I didn't think I needed one. And then that split second, 2 or 3, 10 seconds up on that hill, and my boy losing his footing, he could have broken his legs. My youngest boy could have done the same. Worse yet, I could have been hurt or killed if I hit the water, hit the rocks. And then what we would have been. First thing, PLB would have been the end to that. What happened next is we started walking. Now, I'd gotten disorientated when we'd gone down, and I thought I'd gone down on the left-hand side, looking north towards Forks Hut. We actually were on the right, and I didn't know this. I started getting quite gorgy. It was getting dark. I knew we weren't going to make it. The boys were getting upset. I was in a lot of pain. We pushed off to the right-hand side into the scrub, climbed out above the high water mark and found a bit of a rock lean-to where I made a bed for the boys out of pungafons, got a fire going, thank God, and we settled in for the night. At least we were dry and warm, which was great. We didn't have any warm kit because we'd gone for a day walk, a quick 5-minute jaunt up the back. As I mean, 5-minute jaunt would have been no problem if I had that with me. The boys got wrapped up in some gear that I had. The only top I had, we cut it up, and all I had on was a light green t-shirt after that. We were all in shorts. We're lucky the fire kept us warm. I kept my oldest boy awake because I knew he'd been concussed. Next morning, we got up, and because I thought I was on the left-hand side of the ridge, looking north towards Forks Hut, we made the mistake of crossing the stream and climbing the ridge, thinking that I was getting back up onto the ridge that would come down. That was the biggest mistake I made, because what that did was that totally threw me off. We got to the top, and I've got to give you this, those boys dug it in, man. They worked hard. They were both sore, hurt and scared. They could see I was struggling to walk. My ankle had swollen up beyond belief. I'm too scared to take my boot off. In fact, I didn't take it off the whole time. And we kept on going. They kept pushing ahead of me, and to this day I think about the courage that they showed. I think that kept me going more than anything, because I was on the verge of panic the whole time. I'm not going to lie about it. In fact, I would say that experience was probably one of the most scariest times of my life, and I've been through some pretty full-on times, and that would take the cake. I've never been so scared of anything in my entire life that I never want to feel that feeling again, ever again. So we got to the top of the ridge, and from there I figured we'd walk along, we'd drop down to the hut. It was probably about half an hour, 40 minutes later, I knew that I had stuffed up big time. I knew that I'd totally been disorientated. I knew I'd made the wrong decision. And I'm not making excuses for it, because I should have known better, but it probably came down to stress. Probably the cold had affected my thinking, and the pain I was in. I made some stupid decisions. Again, if I'd had a PLB, I would have pressed that, and we would have been sweet right back at the start. Right back. Never would have to have left the stream. We could have stayed there and been recovered from there. At this stage, all I had was my cell phone. No coverage, funny enough. And we just kept pushing forward. I did know that if I kept the stream on my right, eventually we would come out. But I also knew the boys weren't going to make it. It had been raining since we'd started moving. It was cold. They were in shorts and t-shirt. I kept them walking as much as I could, but I knew they were going down, and I could see my oldest boy really starting to suffer. I kept checking my phone, trying to get coverage, trying to get that elusive bar, and I couldn't pick one up. And it got to the point where I knew it was a make or break situation. And I managed to get on top of a fallen totara bowl. A tree had fallen over, and I climbed up on the root bowl. It must have looked quite hilarious, actually, when I look back at it now as we got out. But there I was, 6'2", 110 kilos. Well, I'm probably being probably been a little bit too generous with that one. Hanging off the top of this root bowl with my phone in the air, frantically trying to get a signal. And there it was, bang, I got 2 bars. Couldn't have been happier. First thing I rang my mate, Simon Amos. I was living with him at that point in time. And he answered the phone and says to me, "Oh, what's up, mate? Have you bagged something?" And all I said was to him, "Mate, I have effed up big time." And I think he could tell from the tone of my voice at that point that there was something wrong. And his tone changed straight away as well. And just want to know, "What's up, man? What's up?" I told him the story. I told him I was, we had a fall. I told him I'd been disorientated. I told him I didn't know where I was. I knew I was on the right side of the river, but I did not know whereabouts we were, how far I didn't know if we'd gone past the hut, I didn't know where we were. I just said, I've got coverage now. I've got injured boys. I'm hurting bad, mate. Call the cops. I need you to get hold of the cops. He made the call and called the cops. What he also did, along with another mate of mine, Andy McGowan, as soon as he spoke to the police, both of them got their kit together and they shot out to the old Rutherford farm and moved up to Te Kiru Hut and came in and made their way to Forks Hut. They did that walk at blistering pace. While that was going on, I was talking to the police officer. This is where it gets a little bit comical because I must have cut down every punga in a radius of 100 metres to make a nest for those boys, because I could see them going down, and they pretty much look like 2 little bear cubs cuddled in a bracken nest in a cave somewhere. But it kept them warm, which was great. There I was, standing on this root bowl, hanging on for dear life, talking to the cop, trying to explain to him where I was. Unfortunately for me, the rescue chopper was over on the Hawke's Bay at that time, so they dispatched a HeliPro chopper. He came out. I was talking to the cop. The cop was talking to the HeliPro. It wasn't working. I could hear him going back and forth, but no, I couldn't actually get onto him. He then said, patch me straight through. So I was talking directly with the pilot at that stage. Bearing in mind my battery was dying, my phone was wet, it was on its last legs. So I'm standing there on this root bowl, looking up at this gap in the canopy, probably maybe 10 meters wide, and talking to this pilot. He was great. He was saying, can you hear me? Am I getting less or louder or quieter? We picked up, and then finally I could start seeing the rotor wash on the trees above me. And then bang, over top of me the chopper. But they couldn't actually see me. They'd actually come over the root bowl, the gap in the canopy without even seeing me. So here's this chopper. And all I said to the guy was, I could actually see the crewie leaning out the side on the other side. I said to the pilot, "Mate, tell your crew to open the other door and look down and you'll see me." And then next minute, bang, there he is, spotted. It was a moment of absolute relief. I never felt so relieved in all my life. From there, they had to pull away to an area they could drop the crew in. He came up to me, explained to me what was going on. They had to wait for the chopper pilot, the rescue chopper, to get there. They got there. They had a longer winch. They dropped straight down through the canopy, just sent the paramedic down. He made a quick assessment, and I'll never forget this. He made a quick assessment of me and my 2 boys. They could only take 2 in the chopper, and I guess you know where I'm going at this point. He said to me, "We can take your oldest boy and yourself. You've got the worst injuries. We're taking you." And I looked at him, and he said to me, "We'll drop the other one, you 2 at the hospital. We'll come back and get your son. The other chopper will remain on site." Apparently, the other chopper wasn't OSH authorised to winch anyone out. I looked at the paramedic and said, "Nah, not a chance, guys. You take my boys out, I'll stay here and wait." And they said, "No, you need to go. You've got the worst injuries." And I said, "It's not happening, team." And from there, the crew from the HeliPro just said, "Look, he's happy to waive health and safety, we'll take him out." And that's what happened. They took the boys up. And the moment I saw my youngest boy go into that chopper, I was the most relieved person it was like someone took a weight off my shoulders. I wasn't out of the shit yet, but it was great to see that happen. And then we went away, and I got winched out. Got to the Palms North Hospital helipad, and of course the media's there taking photos. Luckily they shielded the boys. Unfortunately they got a snap of me, and I'll chuck that pic up as well because it's quite humorous. I look like some big scruffy thug that had just been pulled out of a bar. But anyway, got into the hospital, and again, as soon as I walked into the hospital, I think that was the point I really relaxed. Well, not relaxed, but I let down the guard. And that's the point I actually broke down. I can't remember the amount of times I've actually cried in my life, to be honest with you, but I did that day. Knowing the boys are safe, knowing I was out of trouble, and I let it go. Luckily, the boys were released that night. They were the mild hypothermia, and Daniel had a laceration to his head. He had a fracture to his elbow, and Caleb had just some small lacerations and some bumps and bruises. Me, on the other hand, I had just about taken my patella off my knee. I'd scalped it right back. I had to go to surgery for that, and I'd done quite a bit of damage to my ankle, my left ankle. I had massive ligament and tendon damage, and when they took the boot off, it was pretty much looking like a purple mess, to put it bluntly. And I'm lucky I didn't take that off in the bush. That's pretty much the reason I carry a PLB, and I'll carry one every time I go in the bush now, no matter how long it's for. Whether it's a bush hunter for my mate's farm up the Pahongana Valley, or whether I'm up in the ranges down south, I will have a PLB with me at all times. Simple as that. And in fact, when I hunt with guys, I ask them if they got PLBs. If they haven't got one, then I say you need to get one, because if we split up, you know, it's no good having one. You need to have one per person. You know, one in a party is not good enough, guys. If you go out there and you split, like most hunters do, and when that person has a fall or something, and you've got the PLB and they haven't, it's pointless. They aren't going to know. You need that PLB. So, carry them, guys. Carry them. I'm using ACR. There's multiple different ones out there. There's the new Garmin InReach. It's a great one as well, I've heard. Just have something on you that you can call for help if the worst happens, because there will happen one day, and it'll be when you're not prepared. That's really it, guys. That's all I'm going to say. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. I try not to ramble too much. As I say, like, share and subscribe. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. See you guys.